Everyone has a story to tell. Welcome to DingoTalk, where we explore the experiences that make us who we are. Here's your host, Carlo Guadagnino.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is DingoTalk. My guest this week is the head football coach of the Utica Pioneers, Blaise Faggiano. We're going to talk to Coach Faggiano about being an NCAA champion in 1991 and his playing days at Utica. And we're going to talk to him about we're going to really get into the 2022 season with Coach making a tournament run to the second round. It's the best team so far in program history. We're going to talk about his career from 2008 through today. And then we're going to talk to him about the Empire 8, which is where we have now moved on to. So, that being said, you know the drill. If you're watching us on YouTube, we really appreciate it. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. If you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, or anywhere else you can get your podcast, make sure you hit the little notification bell so you don't miss any of the episodes. And make sure you follow us on the social medias. That's Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Facebook. The only one that's different is the Instagram page. It's dingo_talk. But without further ado, this is Blaise Faggiano. What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is Dingo Talk. My guest this week is the Utica Pioneers head football coach, Blaise Faggiano. Coach, thank you for joining us.
Carl, thanks for having me. Love talking football.
Absolutely. So I got to ask, how did you find your way in 1989? As we do every week, we're going to take you back in the time machine and then work our way forward. 1989, how did you find your way to Ithaca?
Man, I appreciate you asking that. I don't get asked that often. And I really enjoyed the process, right? My dad wasted the money, spent $300 on a service. I had letters from all over the Northeast, right? But I really enjoyed like those trips in the car with my dad. I visited at least 8 places. You know, I visited Springfield and Mike DeLong and Bob Ford at Albany, and threw in a couple of D2. Springfield was D2 then, and AIC, and Hobart and St. Lawrence. It was all over. And I always tell a story. There's a couple of funny stories about my visit to Ithaca. Okay. I'll begin with the end in mind. At the end of the visit, my parents and I think we're going to buy a T-shirt or something. And there was like 4 or 5 players who I didn't know that talked to me for another 45 minutes about Ithaca football. And like that was like the icing on the cake for me. Like they just genuine guys, really cared about the program. Obviously, all the other things were them. I mean, they just won the national championship. So I knew what I was getting into, right? I knew that it would at least, I had pretty good self-appraisal, right? Mm-hmm. That if I decided to go there, I probably wasn't going to play until I was a junior or senior, and kind of knew that going in. A good friend of my dad was a retired police officer, and a good friend of his son, Scott Barker, who's currently the athletic director at Pittsford Mendon, was a receiver on that team and was my host on my visit. Now, you talk about visits morphing and changing, right? Like my visit was like meet Coach Butterfield for 30 minutes. Scott took me on the tour with a couple of his buddies. We ate in the calf. We went to a house party and went downtown Ithaca. That was it. Mm-hmm. And now the visits are quite the to-do, as far as the visit, right? And but at the end of the day, it was really about the people. It was getting to know the coaches, and Mike Welch recruited me, and he was the last coach to visit, right? So he came in, and in I think it was in January, right? Because they were in the national championship game. So, but just it kind of felt right, it felt right. It was away from home, but not too far. I really liked Coach Welch. I really liked Coach Butterfield as people, mm-hmm. and just ultimately as guys go and make their decision at that time for me, which I always respect guys that make the opposite decision. So, because I've been on the other end of this, right? That I picked one of the best programs and knew that it would take me a while to play. Mm-hmm. Now I've been on the other end of that. My time at Fisher, my time at Utica, where, hey, you're trying to build it. And hey, trust me, we're gonna get better. So I've been on the other side of that. So I tell the guys there's no wrong decision in that, but certainly, looking back on it, and Coach Butterfield was in the College Hall of Fame, and when ESPN did the 150, they ranked the top 150 coaches, and he was like one of only, I think, 6 or 7 Division III coaches on the list, and I think only 3 that only coached at D3. Right, the coach at Dayton, who I'll think of it in a minute, but like he was back and forth between 3, and they went up to FCS and all that.
Yeah.
And it was and it was funny. So I went in the visit first with my dad. We went back again with my mom to make on the final decision. But it was funny too. My high school coach calls the head coach at Gates Chili. So Jerry Everling calls Coach Briggs and says, "Hey, Blaise is going to Ithaca. I heard Jeff Whitman's going. They should be roommates." And Jeff was a 3-time All-American running back at Ithaca, a lot better player than I was. One of the only freshmen at that time he played varsity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was real deal.
Oh man, he's still back in Rochester, my home area, teaching phys ed at Gates Chili. He was just an unbelievable player. So there's certainly a lot of good memories about that. I appreciate you asking. But it was a great decision. Listen, it wasn't easy. It was definitely a challenge. Like when you're a sophomore and there's no JVs playing, like you're straight scout team, scout team. And but the junior year is a whole other story.
Well, and that's what I wanted to get into. So Coach, what made that 91 team get back to the national championship? What made you guys so good?
I mean, I think in football, that's how we love football. There's so many factors that go into that, right? And as younger guys, we had watched, we came in after was at home, the college in New Jersey, if I have that right, or that was after our first year, right? So, we kind of watched them struggle a little bit, but there was great leadership, and it's funny. Anytime you do something special, I think a lot of things happen. Like you have a great defense, you have a tremendous quarterback. We had a great quarterback in Todd Wilkowski, that he won. He was the freshman in '88 when they won it. You got great coaches, certainly a really tight-knit family atmosphere. Coach Butterfield really preached. And I mean, from everyone to, when I tell you family, like from the trainers to our custodian that was in charge of Sriracha, like everyone got a national championship ring that helped the football program be successful. That was one thing that certainly lasted with me for forever. For me, it was a big learning year and for me and my family, because I'm a junior, I get beat out by a good buddy of mine that I helped recruit there from Rochester, Rich Gianforti, great D lineman, called him Gooch. And he ended up beating me out. So now I'm like, and he was like for second string spot. So now I'm like third string, may or may not play. I'm a junior. And typical dad, my dad's like, you got to leave, and they don't know what they're doing. And I'm like, Dad, I've been here for 2 years. This is my place. I'm going to keep battling. And and my dad was a pretty big figure of a guy, like commander of the Rochester Police Department. So for me at that young age to say to him how it was going to be was kind of one of those defining, as I look back, defining moments in my life. And what the crazy thing is late in that season, unfortunately, my buddy, he tore his ACL in a game on a kick return. I'm in a locker room with him, was on the road. I won't say where. I'm on the road, and he's like, you're up. Like, you're back up kind of deal. Because I don't think I played much that game. And that was a mentality. And so that's the year that we keep winning, and we end up going on and winning the national championship. And I got to play on ESPN. I joke around with the kids today, when there's only one ESPN, so many cool things around the game. Bradenton, Florida, we flew down in a Trump plane, which was wild to think about. To think that he ended up being our president someday. The fact that Otto Graham spoke at our dinner, that George Steinbrenner came into our locker room at halftime to wish us luck because Coach Butterfield's son had worked for the Yankees. So many crazy things happened in that game. Gary Danielson, who's a big SEC announcer and an old Browns, I'm a big Browns fan, by the way.
I'll forgive you.
Okay, sorry. Old Brown, PA guy. That wouldn't being a PA guy. I know you probably wouldn't like that. And he announced the game. Him and Dr. Jerry Punk announced the game. It was crazy, during that playoff run, I just happened to always be at the right place at the right time. I recovered a fumble in Coach Butterfield's, like, I forget what it was, 100th win, 200th win.
Yeah.
And then in the national championship game, their quarterback got hurt. The backup quarterback comes in, he fumbles a snap. I was able to recover it. And then that led to the go-ahead touchdown. So it wasn't anything special, but I got on the ball, right? I found a way to get on the ball. And we had a great receiver, this kid, Nick Ismailoff, that when we scored the go-ahead touchdown, everyone remembers Nick's pointing to his ring finger. Like, he's real confident, just a great, great guy to be around. And then to see, what we thought we had was special then is just shown now when these guys are getting back together. The joke is that you're not going to see me at a Cortica jug till I retire. Right. And they're all back there. And this year particularly seemed like so many guys were back.
Yeah.
It was for my graduation, it was my 30th year from graduating in '93. And to see all those guys get back together is something special. So I just know always in coaching, I thought, man, if I could ever capture that, wherever I was going to go, that that would be special, and certainly takes a lot of work to kind of build that type of atmosphere. But there were just a lot of positive things going on back then at Ithaca. We ran the split back veer, like I remember the Titans, and I hated going against our O-line in practice because they cut us all the time.
Well, and it's interesting. I was talking to a couple of the other coaches that we've talked to, that when you bring up the veer and some of the running styles that are coming back into, they get recycled. The difference is now there's the cut block rule has changed drastically to where the veer can work, but it's not, your linemen don't necessarily have to worry about their shins being just blown completely away.
Yeah, the gun read is just option, right? So
yeah,
just a little sexier version of it.
So when you graduate in '93, why the decision to go to Albany? Is it because there was not a job available at Ithaca, or did you want to get out and come back?
I mean, I thank you for asking these questions. And I tell you, I do not talk about these things, and I appreciate just talking with a guy that loves D3 football. So, like, I'm kind of brash. I go in coach's office, Coach Butts. I want to work at Penn State. I want to coach. I got my degree in biology education. I got a coaching emphasis. I took Coach Butterfield's football class. I did my paper on the wing tee, right? And like told me he would fail me if I said it was from Delaware. Now, I can't do his accent very well, but he's like, Blaise, it started in Maine. Okay. That's where the wing tee started. And if you put Delaware, I will give you an F on the paper. So, like, I walk in this guy's office who's a legend, and he's like, no, you're not going to go to Syracuse, because that time the GAs didn't coach. He says, you need to go. And I actually got into Ithaca's phys ed program somehow, and I had wanted to stay. And I get that, because sometimes your guys want to stay. And I think there's times where it's good they stay for reasons. I think it's time when they go. Like, I think Springfield's got a pretty strict rule for years where you had to leave.
You had to leave, and then you could come back.
Yeah, and I admired that about Springfield. But so he's like, no. He's like, I'm gonna call Bob Ford at Albany, and I'm gonna call Don Miller at Trinity. I interviewed at both places. Albany had some Ithaca history. There was a guy, Mark McQuaid, who was already there, who played for Ithaca. Coach Welch, I found out, GA'd there years before me. And then in my interview process, realized that, holy cow, if I get this job, I'm going to be a part of this Bob Ford Factory coaching tree, which is insane at that time, and it just grew after I left.
Yeah.
So yes, it was, and then the best part of Albany is I met my wife, Allison. My wife, Allison's from Albany. So, but certainly learned about recruiting and the profession. It was a pretty intense interview. We had like 8 GAs. It was a lot of fun, and I learned a lot about the game,
Now, after your 2 years at Albany, it was time for a homecoming. You decided to come back down to Ithaca. Now, why is that right? Down to Ithaca, up to Ithaca?
That is correct. Yeah. And I had met Allison and after my first year there. And I tell you, you get to that crossroads, your GA's done. It's like, what's next? And I applied for everything. High school jobs. I applied for, I had nothing. There was nothing. And I'm like, holy cow, I can't get a job. And my D-line coach decided to just focus on in high school because he was a high school teacher, Tom Pollock. And just talk about like just these men that I was like. Tom Pollock was a solo captain at Ithaca, Carlo. Like he was a badass dude. Like
Wow.
that was my D-line coach. Like this guy, big pedestal for me. So he steps down and Coach Welch says, "Hey, would you want to come back and coach the D-line at Ithaca?" Which I thought that's the greatest thing ever. $2,600, and I could just sub. So I'm telling my wife's family, I'll figure it out. I'll just sub, and they're like, "What?" And then Allison's like, "You're not going to go without me." So we're very fortunate. She had like one interview at Greene Central School District, which is like north of Binghamton, southeast of Ithaca, and she got that job. And to this day, we laugh. I think for the first half of our marriage, she made more money than me. And as I worked my way up in the profession, but great 4 years there working for Coach Welch, a guy by the name of Ray LaFord and Billy George were on staff. They went on and were a Coast Guard for a long time. Billy just retired from there 2 years ago, I think. And then Brian Angelico, who just most recently was a passing game coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings.
Oh,
that was our staff that I got to be around. And Ray GA'd at East Carolina. So like it was I just learned a ton. I was subbing. I got a long-term sub. I ended up teaching biology at a high school. I was coaching lacrosse. I coached girls softball. And we did that for about 4 years. And I'll tell you, the first year there, we're 1-3. And we're like flipping out because Ithaca had the streak going. I forget how many years at that time of like winning records. It was like in the 30s. And we turned it around, then had a 5-4 year. And then the next 2 years there, we won ECAC games when I was there. But we did not make the tournament while I coached there. But that was just a great staff for me to be a part of,
Well, and then, so after your time back home, it was time to move on to St. John Fisher, correct?
Correct.
And why was that obviously that being the DC makes that a lot more interesting. It makes it more appealing from a coaching point of view when you're trying to work your way up. But why was that where you felt was the next step?
Well, that wasn't easy either. So I wanted to be full-time, and twice at Ithaca, there was opportunities I interviewed and I didn't get it. And there were guys that were way more qualified than me who I learned from and were great. I think that's one thing I've always been able to handle when things don't go your way. I for the most part, I think I handle it well, right? Like, okay, I didn't get the job. I'm just going to work harder, right? So then I'm from Rochester. I knew Gary Mervis, who would coach the kickers at Fisher, who runs Camp Good Days and Special Time, which is a wonderful place in the Finger Lakes. It's a camp for kids that are fighting terminally ill cancer. And I was friends with him and his family. And then there's an old dinosaur that we all love to death, Charles Bud Sims. And he's from PA. He's from East Carnegie.
Oh, hey,
that's outside of Pittsburgh.
I'm Scott Township. That's right down the. Actually, okay. East Carnegie is Scott Township. Don't let anybody tell you different.
All right. So So Buddy was there. Buddy, longtime coach, was a head coach at Brockport, head coach at East High School, and then I didn't know the head guy yet. I didn't know Coach Vosberg, and I'd met him at a camp. This thing called Jim. So another PA thing. So Jim McNally for years ran McNally's deal at the Woodlands Inn and Resort in Wilkes-Barre.
Okay.
That was incredible that I got to go to that for like 6 years. Like NFL guys, college guys, talking ball, having fun. So that's where I really got to know Coach Vaz closer, was at that. So I think I even slept on the floor in their hotel room, right? I think any coach has that somewhere in their story where they, right? Convention, slept on the floor in someone's room, right? So, I get offered the job. I'm making about 40 in Ithaca. The Fisher job pays 26. And I say that for coaches that might listen to this and get something out of this. Like, you can't always make decisions for the money.
Yeah.
Right. So Allison's she's great. All on board, knows I decide I want to do this full time. I could take the job. A month later, Billy George and Ray leave the Coast Guard. Coach Welch offers me to stay at Ithaca. I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
That's like, how it goes, right?
Right. No interview. So that was a pretty big crossroads for me. And I just, and it didn't happen right away. Like, it took me some time to think about it. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go back to Coach Butterfield's advice about leaving and going to Albany, that if I'm going to make a name for myself or I'm going to make an impact, I'm going to do it. And I think I could help St. John Fisher because they were struggling a little bit. And I thought Coach Vosberg was just a tremendous person, tremendous human being. Mm-hmm. So that wasn't a DC though, not to correct you, but so that was just a full-time assistant.
Oh,
Coach Sims was the DC. And then we had a shift at 3 years. Let's see, we were 1-8, we're 1-9, we're 3-7. We're working hard at it, right? We're getting better players. And then Coach Vosberg decides to shift the staff around. And he put Coach Sims with the offense and O-line, promoted me to D coordinator. And I'll tell you what, I got to track back. One of the best things Paul Vosberg did for me, he's like, you're going to coach the secondary. I said, Coach, I don't know a half from a third from a quarter. I was a line guy. And he's like, no, you're going to coach the secondary. I know I'm going to go on offense. You coach the secondary and learn it. And we had a veteran secondary. Mm-hmm. Some of the guys I still keep in touch with. A kid, Sebastian Hernandez, tremendous person. California kid, actually. And I did that for 3 years. When I switched to being the DC, Coach Vosberg came back to defense, and I went back to D-line, which is most of the part what I've done, since then, even being head coach. But that was a great thing he did for me. And then the next thing's it's all history: 6-4, 8-3. We beat Muhlenberg at our place. Coach Donnelly, prayers for him in heaven. He's a great guy, old Ithaca guy. Duke Donnelly, good buddies with Coach Welch. And Coach Fitz was the quarterback of that team, the head coach at Cortland, right?
Okay.
So then we broke through. We were 10-2. Similar kind of deal what the Pioneers did this year.
Yeah.
So I'm always very, very appreciative of my time at Fisher, because I'm not a head coach today or for the last 15 years, right? So like I don't get this job if what doesn't happen at Fisher happens, right? Like how do you go from 1-9 to we're playing Mount Union? And then we're playing Mount Union in the Final Four, right? Like, so there was a lot that goes into that. So that was a big move for Al. We definitely made big moves. It was always nice for Allison and I and all these coaches that take jobs and travel the countries. We could always drive home for Christmas, right? Like we were always in New York. We're always in New York, right? From Albany to Ithaca, to Rochester, then eventually Utica. We were always in New York and close enough to family, which is something that's always been, important to me.
Well, and I think it's interesting. There's a couple of things I want to touch on. One, I think it's interesting that you bring up, don't necessarily do it for the money, because I think most people at the D3 level will say you're not getting Nick Saban money. You're working because, just like the athletes, you love the sport. You want to give back to. That's kind of what we've decided here as a group, that D3, from the coach's standpoint, that's really what it is it's the guys that they want to get their education, but their careers aren't done. So, now why, after, the success starts and you guys are rolling, why was it time in 2008 to make your way to the Pioneers?
I'll quote Joe Gerbino, who's our offensive coordinator this past year, was named D3 Assistant Coach of the Year. We really rocked the convention this year, Utica. We were pretty excited. I got to speak at the convention, which is like literally the all-time greatest thing that ever happened to me, to speak at the convention. And Joe said to me during recruiting before he left, and he's currently now at Bethune-Cookman down in Florida. He goes, and this was funny, I never heard anyone quite say, it's like, if there was a job he felt that was made for someone, he felt that the Utica job was made for me. And we kind of laugh about it because we know all the reasons why, that not just because of my last name. That's certainly a big part of it. Because there's a lot of Italians in Utica, but my wife is also Polish, and there's a lot of Polish in Utica. But it just I'll never forget it. Like I remember sitting in my living room with my wife, and the job, I saying something to her about the job, and she's like, "This is going to be the one." I'm like, "Okay." She's kind of new. Like, there's not a lot of chances to become head coaches, and I can remember being at Fisher and people starting, "Hey, my friends, you're gonna apply for job." I look back and I can honestly say I was a pretty good be where my feet are guy. Like I gave Fisher I gave every place everything I had, because I believe that kind of leads to your next opportunity.
Absolutely.
So the fun part is like there's so many families now that were in Utica whose kids either played at Fisher or Ithaca. So my phone's ringing, right? And Tony Leone and Brian McQueen and Lupia and all these guys are calling me, and they're like, this could be a great job. And I knew Coach Kemp very well. We had a good relationship. He just spoke at our clinic recently. He built the program from nothing to a winning record, close to an ECAC game. And I knew I would like the job. And on the interview, I really fell in love with it because I really fell in love with the people.
Okay.
So Todd Hutton, the president at the time, Jim Spartano, the athletic director, the deans and professors, that like I could just tell that these people really cared about this place, and that the players really wanted to be successful. And I really just felt it was the next thing, and it's funny, as I moved from school to school, there was no call on the last place. So I had to find other people to call for advice and how to do this and how to do that. Because like literally was leave Ithaca, and Ithaca was the standard, right? And then it took 6 years, but then we finally beat Ithaca. And then I think Fisher had a 7-year win streak against Ithaca at one point, right? And then then I leave Fisher and come to Utica, in Utica we only had one winning season, right? So we really hadn't beaten anybody yet, right? And so there was no call in the last place. But, I've been fortunate to have some great coaches on my staff and the right alumni. I think Utica's been a place where it's important to us to have alumni on the staff when we can.
Okay.
There's no one better to sell your university in your area than your own guys.
I like that. I think that's the truest of true. I mean, the guy that played for you for 4 years or played there at one point, he's going to be able to connect and tell the incoming guy or whoever's on the team, hey, look, this is the way we did it. Let's improve that. Speaking of improvements, so the 08 season, probably not the way you wanted the 08 to start, but, here we are, 14, this will be season 15. So 14 years later, best regular season /season in program history, correct? 10-2, go to the second round of the playoffs. Let's talk about that 2022 season. Why was this group special?
It's funny. Adversity always helps, right? So this is a group that went through COVID. This is a group that went through a kind of up and down season in 21 to finish 6-4 and get a bowl game.
Yeah.
Right. And secure a winning season. Cause like we've had multiple winning seasons, but for whatever reason, if you look, we're back and forth, winning season, either 500 or losing season, back and forth. And we really wanted to put together back to back. So like in 19, we were 19 or 18. 18, we win the bowl game against Ithaca. Huge. The whole state knows we did that, right? That was big. Just the week after Ithaca beat Cortland. Yeah. Then in 19, we go 5-5. 20 COVID hits. Play Alfred twice. What the heck? Win at our place, lose at theirs, right? A big Coach Ranko fan. He's a great guy. Then we go and then we go back and forth, 6-4, and Grove City smokes us. So like that was like not a good feeling for our whole program. Like, and I held everybody accountable on how that was never going to happen again. Okay. And we worked at that thing. And a lot of good things happened to get to what happened the following year, right? Our defense improved. We had a transfer quarterback, Braden Zanilovich. Braden came from UAlbany. It was kind of like always the backup there, right? They're always trying to recruit someone better. Had eligibility left. We had a new DC that replaced a guy that was like a legend. Like we had a guy, Will Pluff, that was with me for 10 years. It's like bleeds blue and orange. Like he's got blue and orange in his milk and his cereal in the morning. But his wife gets a great job down in DC. They moved down to DC. So we had to bring in a new guy who played at Salisbury, played D3. Like Sherm Wood called me about this guy. Like I think of Sherm Wood, I have him up on a pedestal in D3 football. And so, bringing Coach McClendon had some new ideas. And then Joe Gerbino and Jared Klaus was like their 5th year working together. And it just all kind of came together, and it was a team that found ways to win. It wasn't always pretty. Holy cow. Like, Payne's defense was unbelievable. U of R's running back rushed for 400 yards against us, right? I told the kids, if I told you in camp that we'd be down to U of R 21-0 in the first quarter and up on Brockport 21-0 in the first quarter, you tell me to go take a hike. And that's what happened.
Yeah.
Crazy. Like, U of R got on us early. We came back and found a way to win. Brockport, like, we really were in control of the game the whole game, which was quite a swing. So, like, the Union game was wild. Like, the Union game, you know, it was one of those things that you'll never forget. We walk into that old basketball gym field house deal over there. We walk in, and the guys were like, all right, so we're down. We can go win this thing. They had no doubt we could go win. So we're down 24-7, you know, or 24-7. We came back and win 31-24. It was crazy. Like, the defense, we couldn't stop in the first half. We had 6 straight 3-and-outs in the second half. So, like, that was certainly, you know, Union had won the Liberty League the year before. You know, that was certainly a big one. You know, finding a way to win at Western New England, it was ugly. Even the playoff game, you know, we won it kind of with great red zone defense, and we block a punt, and I mean, they were a great team, you know, and I think the thing that, you know, I always promote Empire 8 football, you know, being a New York guy, being in this conference as long as I've been one way or the other. Like, I think all like the D3football.com guys, who I love, right, all forget that it's Utica, right? There's a 9-1 Empire 8 team that just got a Pool C. Right? Like, come on. Like, like the biggest thing that we all do is we all beat each other up. You know, Cortland, Brockport, Fisher was better last year. Alfred, playing at Alfred Station is not easy, you know, and Hartwick always finds a way to score a bunch of points. So, you know, that was the one thing that we were always confident in, and we kind of liked the us against the world deal, right? And everyone's wondering how we got in, and we loved that. It was great. And like, we got in because we were 9-1 from the Empire 8, and we always had a really high strength of schedule, you know, at the end of the day. And what an experience, you know, what an experience. And, you know, it's funny, like, you know, the teams that have the selection show, they kind of know they're getting in, right?
Yeah.
So our guys kind of knew, coach called the party for the selection show. We're gonna get in. And I was so glad, because again, I'm on the committee. I'm on the committee, but I wasn't really involved in any of it because we were in the mix.
Yeah.
So all these decisions were being made, the bracket, the selection. I wasn't really involved in that. And I'll never forget, we had beat Fisher. I stayed the night that night at my dad's place, and we were going to go hunting the next morning, right? Because we're not going to know who we're going to play till 4 or 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And it was like midnight that I got the call back and hopped back on the call, that I knew that we had gotten in. And it was certainly a great moment to have with my dad. And, you know, just really proud of our kids, our coaches, you know, finding ways to win football games. You know? So, you know, we've kind of been painfully close, Carlo, right? That's right. Like, we're like, that's been us.
Right there on the cusp.
Painfully close. You know, like, everyone talks about the Morrisville game, and Morrisville was a really good football team, right? Their defense was nasty. They found a way to run the ball, the controversial, you know, last play of the game. But you know what? At the end of the day, it was nice for us to be on that side of it. We've been on the other side of those darn things. And all our alumni know, time and time again, where, you know, we actually won with Morrisville. It's like double, triple overtime game. We think the game's over. We got a pass interference. They get the ball at the 1, right? Score, they win.
Yeah.
You know, so I just think that our win in the playoffs was an Empire 8 win. You know, and what's great is, of all, like, Vosburg's the best, right? Because he is rooting for us, right? Well, they got to remember, you know, we beat Muhlenberg back in the day, and then he's talking about how Fisher went down and beat John Carroll. You know, Coach, I know. You know, because he knows that's good for your conference, right? Because it's so hard. Listen, it's so hard. I couldn't even begin to explain 8-2 teams, 9-1 teams, who's better. It's brutal.
Yeah.
I was so glad I wasn't even on the darn call, right? And, it's crazy to think about. Like the year we played Ithaca, or no, 2 years ago, Ithaca was 8-2 with like a 700 strength of schedule and didn't get in. Like so the only thing we can do to fix that, as we're talking D3 football, is expand the tournament.
Okay.
Which that is, I think it's okay I say that is certainly in motion.
So
right?
it's something that is being talked about and trying to.
More than being talked about. There is work being done. I can say.
Okay.
And there is support from the NCAA in that regard.
Now, do they look at, let me ask this from the NCAA standpoint, are they looking at the FCS, the Division II and the Division III playoff system for whatever that debacle is in the Power Five? Because the 4 teams clearly isn't enough. I'm tired of seeing Ohio State, Michigan, and Alabama and whatever school they decide to give the 4th seed to. Right. But does that play a factor in as well?
Well, I think there's a couple of models that we're working on. That are, I think, that maybe get upwards to 40 teams. So now you can have like 8 teams.
Yeah.
Right. And we all know what's wild about that is 2 of those 8 teams could be in the national championship game.
Yeah.
And I think that what we have going for us is of all the sports, we have the least amount percentage in the postseason per our numbers.
Okay.
Right. So like it's with 250 teams and 32 go to the postseason. I think that proportionally is a little bit less than some of the other sports.
Yeah.
So there's certainly some good momentum here, which I think will be unique. Now, there's certainly challenges and the timing of the game and all that, but that is certainly a work in progress. I think I can speak on it. If I get in trouble for that, JP Williams, I'm sorry, but
we're breaking news here. That's all we're doing. We're just breaking news.
Yeah. But we're working on it. We're working on it. The other big thing was the whole we got to shorten the game nonsense, right? So what's going to happen, I believe, I don't think it has yet, is that we're going to find out this summer that D1 and D2 are going to do it. D3's not.
Okay.
Right. So the challenge is going to be for those OAC officials that do both 2 and 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Is the clock stopping or not stopping? And we just really felt like it had nothing to do with Division III football, whose game was 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Yeah.
It's about television.
And right? That's right television. Now D3 minus the playoffs, you're not really going to see on TV.
So that's going to be interesting to see down the road, because they've wanted to keep consistency in the game of the rules.
Yeah.
Right. There already is a little bit of difference with targeting. Yeah. Right. Because Division I, they watch it right then and now. If you get in the second half of Division III, you're out of luck.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they'll wait until after the game and then go review the tape.
Correct. Not right at the moment.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting.
What makes the Empire 8 so special?
All right. My philosophy on that is this. In New York State, there's no PSAC.
No Division II.
Okay. No D2. No D2. There's one. There's Pace.
Okay.
Down by New York City. And, they're in the NE10.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a big part of it. I really do. And I think, when the financial aid can be good at the Division III level, I think that's where you see those private schools are successful. For us, we did the tuition reset years ago. That's part of what happened. Like, there's so many things that happened at Utica. Like, we started phys ed 6 years ago. Mm-hmm. We started sports management 6 years ago. We built the largest indoor facility in the United States of America, right? We call it the Hunt. So it's like a 40 by 80 turf field and 200-meter indoor track or weight room. So certainly a lot of things have been going on at the university to help attract the top level student athletes, and those are phys ed and sports management are 2 of our top 5 majors now, and that allows us to go and hit heads with the state schools. I think what makes the conference unique is the mix of private and state, right? Mm-hmm. You don't see much of that anymore.
No, no, it's not. That's not a common thing.
No, like when I first was in the E8, we had Ithaca and Springfield.
Yeah.
So when they left, we got Salisbury and Frostburg. All right, here we go. Right, Salisbury won it every year. They won it every year. Okay, they leave. I'm like, so then finally, I don't know how Chuck Matrano did it. I'm like, listen, if we're going to play state schools, Might as well play the ones that are right down the thruway.
Yeah.
And then, so then we get all the state schools. But then Buff State leaves and goes in the Liberty League. I'm like, really? So, it's been an ever fluctuating
schedule.
The scheduling's probably, I hate it. That's one thing I hate, is scheduling. Now, what's nice is, talking some Pennsylvania here, we have a non-league agreement with the Landmark, which gets some really great matchups. So we're playing Lycoming and Moravia next year.
Okay.
Which is great.
And Lycoming, part of that, Lycoming Wilkes leaving the MAC, and they're going to join the Landmark this year for their first season as Landmark schools.
I'm not going to say, like, Susquehanna landed Cortland and Brockport. So, whew. A lot of kudos to Susquehanna. They're great. They're a really good football team. But but yeah, it's the Empire Eight. I think that's why some of the top Division III football players, they can stay in New York. I think as you look at, I know New York sometimes will get a knock. It just does, compared to Pennsylvania or Ohio or Jersey or wherever. But then there's like in New York, it's like Long Island is different. Yeah. I think the City Catholic League's different. And then there's like, it's like anything else. Like there's certainly pockets, Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse. There's some just tremendous football programs that are continuously putting out college level talent, right? Mm-hmm. So I think, just because you say, okay, there are a lot of small schools in New York. There's a lot of schools going back to 8-man football. I get that. But I mean, some of the best players we had at Fisher played Class B, C, and D. And that's really been the same thing. Like our first team All-American played at BVS High School. Yep. It's a Class B school, Vernon Vernon-Sherrill. So, I don't always, that's why I really like the small college football. Like he can play or he can't play. I'm not so caught up in the numbers. I get it. If you're giving scholarships, you got to be right.
Yeah.
It's got to be a certain wingspan and height and all that nonsense. I'm glad I don't have to deal with that.
Well, let's talk about when you're setting up your recruiting board, or you're looking at guys, and what are you looking for in a college athlete? What are you looking for a pioneer, a future pioneer?
The best, we're looking for Utica guys that want criminal justice, that want phys ed, that want sports management, that want construction management, that want physical therapy. Number one.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna sell our academics. And then like our families at Utica it's a very unique, it's a blue collar, diverse private school.
Okay.
So like if my parents make a ton of money, you never know it at the tailgate because they are down to earth people.
Okay.
Right? So we're trying to find those blue collar families out there that want a lot of first generation still. We're a big first generation school. Our college diversity in our football team is like 40% come from a background of color. There's not a private school in the Northeast that's even near that, right? I think most are under 10 or 8%. So like there's a certain unique guy that we're looking that we think kind of fits us. Like our guys don't want a large school. They don't want 8,000 kids, 6,000. They want to know their professor.
Yeah.
That's a huge one. And then I think our guys like that we have a city too. They can go to a concert, they can go to watch our hockey team play or professional sports teams play at the Utica Auditorium. Like they like that there's a place to get their hair cut, great food. Like I think a lot of Northeast schools are in these small little towns.
I understand. I went to Bethany.
Yeah, right. So
we had a general store and a bar. That was it. It's 6 miles every direction.
Yeah, it's like Alfred Station, same deal. Like you got to be a different, tough kid for that. Like our guys like that there's stuff to do. So it's funny. Like I think there's 60,000 in the city of Utica. There's 300,000 in the area. There's like a lot to do, and and I just think we do a good job of involving our players, and so that kind of evolved from the kids. The whole hashtag Utica guy thing that came from the players. And
I like that.
Yeah, there was a Friday night meeting. I'm a big Friday night meeting guy, and I that's when all the rah-rah happens. Because Saturday's business. That's
Okay.
that's an old Coach Butts thing. And I guess one Friday night before a big game, I went on and on of what I felt a Utica guy was, not really thinking about it. And on Monday, they're knocking my door down. Coach, you got to hashtag that. And that's when I still didn't know what. I'm like, number sign? What are you talking? I didn't know what that was. And, so we talk about like a Utica. It's a Utica guy is uncommon. They're together. They have integrity. They play with class and hold each other accountable. That came directly from this group of fifth-year seniors 5 years ago. The whole Utica guy uncommon stuff. That was those guys.
Yeah.
And, talk about, they're 2 rings and made a huge impact on our program. Certainly left a mark, and a little easier to recruit, right? When you have 10 wins than when you're trying to build it, for sure.
Now, last football question. What can we expect in 2023?
Our guys are hungry. I mean, the way they work this offseason, like they know, like this is the first time we've had back-to-back winning seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And they know that everyone's wondering, how are we going to follow it up now that Nate Palmer's gone and Jimmy Warren's gone and these guys are gone? And both players of the year in our league. So, we're going to be back to 38 seniors again. Look, we had 37 last year. We're 38 this year. An even higher percentage of them are in the 2 deep than even last year. We had a high percentage last year. Had a lot of staff change. I had 4, 1 full-time and 3 grad assistants, all go on into bigger, better things. And so that was some work that I had to do, and our old line coach, Jared Klaus, went through a tough interview process and showed that he should be the leader of offense. I couldn't tell you how proud I am of him. Braden Zanilovic, who played quarterback for us last year, is actually going to be a quarterback coach in GA. So I needed a quarterback coach since Coach Gerbino left, and I really switched the staff around, and I promoted a grad assistant, Zaril Hendrick, who's from Rochester, played at Edinburgh, and had coached with us, and is just like a great secondary coach and a great recruiter. And so I kind of shifted the staff around a little bit, and we had a great spring. And we got that all done before spring. So we're excited. We're excited for the new teams we're going to play. We're excited. It's funny, like we've never been nationally ranked, Carl, right? So we beat Brockport and we're like 26.
Right on that receiving votes.
Right. And then we lose to Cortland, which they're very good, and credit to them. Okay. So we battle back. We still have never been nationally ranked. So we beat Susquehanna. I had a good feeling. All right, now we're nationally ranked, but of course they put Susquehanna ahead of us.
Yeah.
Our guys love that. We're like, thank you for that.
More bulletin board material.
Bulletin board material. It was so funny, like watching the Bullies of Baltimore there, the 30 for 30, and hearing the head coach talk about the bulletin board material and how those guys wouldn't have survived Twitter, But the bulletin board's a real thing. So, we were fine with them putting Cortland ahead of us because that's fine.
Yeah,
they beat them. Like, come on, like on the road, but that's okay. So, the guys have been working hard and we're excited for next season. And, I like to think that we're going to have another successful season. One of our goals has been to win consistently to whatever level that is, right? And that's one thing that, Fisher did for years, Alfred's done for years, Hartwick did back in the day. Like every school in our league, that's interesting, right? I don't know if you can say this about some conferences. Every school in our league has won the Empire 8 at some point multiple years in a row. What other conference can you say that about?
Well, I can say that there's a couple conferences that I've interviewed already on this Division III tour, and they predominantly have one school that has sat at the top of the mountain for a very long. There's maybe a little shift. One of those conferences, there's a little shift in the power structure, but the other conference is still predominantly run by that school with purple. So,
but I know, and we ran into them. You know what I mean? And we ran into them, and it was great for our program to go and see what that looks like. Like at the end of the day, our guys knew that. All right, there's only 2 teams left playing in New York. It was us and Ithaca.
Yeah,
and we lose the Mount, and they lost to North Central, which is wild, right? So something certainly to build on.
So, Coach, this is the part of the show. These were random questions that my editor and girlfriend picked at the beginning of the season that I have asked every coach.
Okay.
So, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Siesta Key Beach, Florida. They have the best beach in the United States of America.
What is the most important lesson you've learned over your career?
To be where your feet are.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah,
if you weren't coaching,
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go. Rapid fire. I like it. Go.
If you weren't coaching, what occupation would you be doing and why?
I want to be like a charter fisherman, like Bass Pro. I want to be on the Bass Pro Tour.
I like that. Just out there all day long.
Yeah, a little hunting fishing, maybe a little combo, a little hunting fishing show like you see on, like I'm always watching in the hotel on Saturday morning before the game. Yeah.
Best compliment you've ever received?
Oh, okay. Give me 1 second. That's when someone tells me they know I really care about my players.
Best insult you've ever received? And it doesn't have to listen. I understand most of the coaches have stayed in the PG realm. It doesn't have to.
That's okay. Who does he think he is? You know what I mean? They haven't done anything yet. He's walking around, kind of like that.
All right.
Yeah, I guess you're not. I guess it's not okay to walk around like you're a winner if you haven't won yet. I guess I don't.
People are noticing. Let's put it that way. If you're being noticed, you're winning enough.
Can I add one more? I just thought of one. When I was at Fisher, I was called the spaghetti recruiter. That was a good one. You throw it up against the wall and see what sticks, because we were bringing in classes of like 70, 75 kids a year. Well, that team in purple, right? You look at the OAC, and I was just talking to Coach Berman. Guess what? The best teams in the country have 150 to 200 kids on their team. But yeah, spaghetti recruiter was one.
I'm glad that it was for the throw it against the wall thing, because we have a lot of vowels in our last name. I thought they might be taking a stab at a.
No, they wouldn't want to do that.
Coach, the final question is one that I created for this season. It's worded very goofily. Was there a question that you were expecting me to ask you? And if so, how would you have answered it?
Oh, if you were to ask me a hard question, it would have been how the heck tournament, right? Because that was obviously a big thing out there, right? And and all I could say is that the committee looked at the numbers, and the numbers always, always had us there. I mean, I think it was tough in some of the regions. It's like you're not supposed to look at the scores, right?
Right.
And teams were looking at the score. And I get it. Like Cortland really got after us.
Yeah.
We also turned the ball over 4 or 5 times. They got after us. People were looking at that, and then they looked at like the Hopkins and Susquehanna was closer. And people were trying, like, you can't. That wasn't not even anywhere near on there's a criteria. No. And like upset a lot of people, And so like everyone's like, I'm like, guys, like me, like what? I wasn't even involved in the darn thing, I was glad the committee picked us, and glad that they knew what they were doing when they put us against Susquehanna, right? I'm certainly glad our guys played out that day, And our college president was there, by the way, So a shout out to her. She was at our bowl win. She was at our playoff win, and she's retiring this summer. So a shout out to Laura Casamento, who is from Utica, grew up in Utica, and got to be our president here in her city. But
wow.
So now I thought that would be the tough one, not knowing who you were, what we were going to talk about today.
Well, Coach, I do have to also share some news. You might see this Italian face up there in Utica this fall. We're in the process. We're going to select 10 games. We're going to try to hit a full season, but throughout the different conferences. So obviously that decision falls to my lovely girlfriend and the editor of the show. She makes the decisions, and I shake my head because that keeps me happy and keeps her happy. So,
well, just like I told my guy from In the Huddle, right, Frank Rossi, right. If you want to come in the fall, don't wait till the end of the year, and you just let us know, because we make sure you can get to the right places for some great food up here. Great food in the Mohawk Valley.
Absolutely. Coach, thank you very much for taking the time to sit down with us. For those of you that are sticking around, you know what comes up next. Serenity is going to tell us all the things that I made, all the mistakes that I made during the show. And I'm going to point out that, every episode's a chance to learn. That's my message this week, is every episode's a chance to learn. So we'll be right back, Chuckleheads. What's going on, Chuckleheads? Welcome to another edition of the editorial. I am Carlo Guadagnino. That's Serenity Brown, because she's in charge of this segment, although you wouldn't know it if you've watched any of the previous episodes. We just wrapped up with Coach Faggiano. What'd you think?
I think that so far this has been, because technically the edit's still not officially done with until after we film this, but so far this has been the hardest edit to date since I've started editing.
And why is that?
We've had a lot of cuts, like his, I don't know if like his internet was like cutting in and out, but there was a lot of cuts, so some of them it's a smoother transition, you can't really tell. Some of them it's kind of a hard cut. I'm not that great at editing, so yeah.
It's a learning experience.
So, and then trying to input the background that we usually have behind the interview itself with all of those cuts taken into account is
a little bit more,
a little more tricky.
I really enjoyed talking to Coach. I think it's a different ball game when you're talking to ranked teams and teams that had either been in the playoffs or went to a bowl game, and we've had that. But it's a lot of the teams that we talked to before, I at least knew, because the PAC and the OAC being right here.
Yeah.
That being said, you look at some of the games that Utica had, and wow, I mean that they went on one hell of a run last year. I talked to your dad this past weekend about where is Utica in relation to everything. I don't think that Utica will be on our list, seeing as it's like, so you guys where you are, then it's Utica, then it's Syracuse, and I just don't think that we have the means to do that. So I also, I lied to all of you. We're not giving you the dates yet or the games that we're going to, because I haven't finalized that list. We had some things come up. And we are doing a top 3 thing at the end here. It's not going to be the barbecue thing, because apparently I repeated the same thing.
It's the same question.
If you're watching us on YouTube, we really appreciate it. Please hit the like and subscribe button. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever else you get your podcast, hit that notification button, and appreciate you. Don't miss another episode. And then you can follow us on the social medias, which are Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. The only one different is the Instagram page. Do you want to give them that one? That's right. It's right. It's not so easy, is it? It's dingo_talk.
I wanted so bad to say DingoTalk _
But that wasn't even what it was. It was dingo_talk score is what I said, actually.
I know.
So, yeah. All right. So I'm going to throw some words at this one, because we are from different, we hail from different regions. I'm going to throw some words at you, and we're going to see how different the vernacular is. I'm going to start with an easy one. It's crayon.
Crayon?
That was better. It wasn't as cranberry that you were saying earlier. Oh, okay. That's a berry. It's good for your stomach. Gum band.
Rubber band.
Absolutely not. It's a gum band.
Rubber band.
Buggy.
Shopping cart.
No, it's a buggy.
Shopping cart.
Clicker.
Remote.
Clicker.
Remote.
No, it's a clicker.
It's a remote.
All right. And the last one.
I've also heard some people call a vacuum a sweeper.
Yeah, it's a sweeper.
That's a broom.
No.
A sweeper is a broom. A vacuum is a vacuum.
No, but
Yeah.
no. Why? Because you sweep with a broom?
Yeah.
No, that's no. The actual, and this one, I'm sure for those of you at home, if there's any of them that you agree or disagree with, please let us know. This one, it's pretty self-explanatory though. it's pop.
It's soda.
It's not, because soda is the thing in the box in the back of the refrigerator, and pop is pop.
It's, soda.
And if you want to be technical,
If you want to be technical, it's
cola.
soda pop.
Well, technically it's cola. Pepsi is a cola.
Actually,
Coca-Cola.
Technically,
It's soda pop.
it's soda pop.
If we're from the Midwest. But we're not. But we're not. We're not from the
And
Midwest.
I'm pretty sure cola only refers to dark sodas.
So root beer would be a cola? I don't think so.
Technically.
No, they're all pop. It's pop.
It's soda.
It's pop.
Okay, well.
We might put up a poll this week at some point. Pop or soda? Settle debate here. But you got anything else? Coach, we really appreciate having you. And next week we will be we'll be back with, I believe, another coach from the Empire 8. Although you never know, you could see we have a school from Alabama, we have a school from Texas on the so you never know who's going to end up on Dingo Talk here in the next couple weeks.
We're branching out.
We are like a tree. We'll see you next week, Chuckleheads.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Dingo Talk. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. For more info and to contact the show, you can find us on Twitter @DingoTalk.